And we're back, folks, here on WrestleRant. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and right here in WrestleRant, we break down every single pay-per-view that I watch on the WWE Network, and today we're talking about 2001's King of the Ring event. So significantly better than a lot of the previous shows that I've been talking about in recent weeks, the late 90s shows. I mean, by and large, I love the idea of a King of the Ring tournament, but let's face it, this is the penultimate edition of King of the Ring as a pay-per-view. And up to this point, from 93 to 2001, more often than not, the show has sucked. It's had a lot of good matches, don't get me wrong. I own the Best of the King of the Ring DVD that has some great King of the Ring matches from the pay-per-view and the tournament and whatever. But the show overall, I mean, you get the DVD, you think, wow, this pay-per-view is really cool, and I hope it gets brought back at some point. But you look at, I mean, I don't know how it did in terms of pay-per-view buy rates. I'm sure it did pretty well. But the matches and the execution of the tournament I thought was just super poor, almost on a yearly basis. I thought 96 was pretty good. Still not a great show, but better than a lot of the previous installments. The late 90s shows were deplorable. 2000 sucked. Thankfully, as a show in the year of 2001, this was not an amazing event. Definitely better than the 2000 show than its predecessor, and also way better than the Invasion pay-per-view that would soon follow. So, overall, I thought it was a good show. Let's break it down. The opening match, a King of the Ring semifinal bout. Kurt Angle taking on Christian. Good match, not really anything special, just kind of there. I mean, you would expect something better from two really good workers, but it was just kind of a match. The only thing worth noting about this match is that Shane McMahon got involved and helped Kurt Angle win, despite the fact that they were set to face off later on in the night in a street fight. Now, the reason behind that, I mean, a lot of people were probably expecting coming into the show that Shane would cost Kurt, in the tournament. I mean, ultimately he would in the finals against Edge, which I'll get to momentarily. But I thought it was cool how he helped him win here, just so he could help him advance, so he was weaker going into their street fight later on in the night. So I thought that was really, really cool. But the match itself was nothing of note. Kurt Angle advanced into the finals, like I said. And the second semifinal match of the night in the King of the Ring tournament, Edge taking on Rhino. They had two very different styles. I mean, they have history and chemistry beyond the ring in real life and whatever, so it wasn't a bad match. It just wasn't, I mean, Rhino's more of a brawler, he's more of a powerhouse, obviously. Edge was more of a technical wrestler and very quick and agile, so it was two very different styles, and sometimes those kind of things work. Sometimes, opposites attract, obviously. That was not the case here. Again, not a bad match, but a lot like Angle and Christian, not really a match worth noting either. I mean, they would go with Edge as the big breakout star, which I'll talk about momentarily, as the big breakout single star in 2001, and people liked him, but he wasn't quite as over as he should have been, as he was, about a year later in 2002, which I'll get to again in a couple minutes. But anyway, they weren't really solidly behind Edge. It was just kind of a match. Not a great match, not a bad match, but just more of an average match than anything else. So after that, for the tag team titles, we had the Dudley Boyz defending against Spike Dudley, and a partner of his choosing. They turned on Spike, or maybe vice versa, but they had since split up. Spike was looking for a partner to take on his former friends, former brothers, I guess, in storyline. For the tag team titles, ultimately, he chose Kane. So we had a fun little match here. I mean, nothing really too great, a pretty standard tag team match for the most part. But Kane was a nice little partner for Spike. I mean, two very different styles, a lot like with Edge and Rhino, but I feel like that works better as partners than it does as opponents, if that makes sense. But Kane helped, bring legitimacy to the match and gave Spike a fighting chance of winning the tag team titles. But not even Kane was successful in helping him win the tag team titles from the Dudley Boyz. In the end, they were successful in retaining their tag team titles. So a good match, nothing too great, but I like the story that was being told here and kind of made up for the fact that the match was really nothing too amazing. In the finals of the 2001 King of the Ring tournament, Edge defeating Kurt Angle. Again, just not that really great of a match. Shane McMahon got involved and cost Angle the win, so it was more about those two than it was about Edge. And like I said, I mean, the match was just kind of there. They would have, in my opinion, far better matches in the spring of 2002 when Edge really broke out on his own following the draft and he was over on SmackDown with Angle. Those are the series of matches to me that really solidified Edge as a single star. So it wasn't this match with Angle, and it had nothing to do with Angle or Edge. It was more the fact that the booking wasn't really there. Edge wasn't ready. I mean, not to say that he wasn't ready to be, broken off on his own as a singles guy, to be broken off away from Christian, but he didn't really warrant the push that they were giving him at that point in time as a breakout babyface, because people weren't really taking to him maybe the way that officials thought they would. It's still a good match. Edge was the right winner considering Angle won the year prior. Edge, in theory, should have benefited more from it, but he did. I mean, he was a better winner than Angle just because Angle had already won it, and the focus was already on Angle's match with Shane anyway later on in the night. So after that, for the Light Heavyweight Championship, fun little match between Jeff Hardy and Xpac. It was nice while it lasted. Jeff Hardy retained with a roll-up. Kind of a confusing finish, but in the end, he did retain the title. He dropped the belt the next night anyway to Xpac, which I was surprised by, just the fact that he won here, just because I remember watching and reviewing, obviously, the Invasion pay-per-view a few weeks ago, and Xpac was the champion going into the show. So I thought he was winning the belt here. He didn't. He'd win it on Raw. I don't know why, but whatever. So this match was pretty much meaningless, but from an in-ring standpoint, it was fun while it lasted. After that, we had, throughout the night, Diamond Dallas Page sitting at ringside, and as I talked about, I mean, not really, actually. They didn't face off in a singles match at the Invasion pay-per-view. They would drag out the feud for a few more months, and they were involved in that big inaugural brawl for it all or whatever at that pay-per-view. So Diamond Dallas Page was revealed, or revealed himself, rather, as the attacker and stalker of Undertaker and his wife, Sarah. So he bought a ticket to the show. He was at ringside throughout the entire 2001 King of the Ring pay-per-view, waiting for Undertaker's arrival. And footage aired of DDP being stalked throughout the day in the parking lot, in catering, backstage. In the end, it was revealed to be Sarah behind the camera, and then out comes Undertaker to beat the living holy shit out of Diamond Dallas Page. And that was pretty much what, this feud is all about. That was essentially the feud in a nutshell, was Undertaker beating the crap out of Diamond Dallas Page. Never once was really DDP made to look like an equal to the Undertaker. Not in their tag team matches, in their singles matches, in the Battle Royals. Maybe DDP got one over one on Undertaker at some point, but as far as I can recall, it was mostly in Undertaker's favor. He was pretty much dominant throughout the entire feud, which really did nothing to solidify DDP as a star that he was and also could have been in WWE. So the feud was, in theory, it started out great. DDP as the mystery attacker was a huge surprise. No one really saw that one coming at all, so it was a really cool reveal. But in theory and in execution of the reveal was great. Everything after that, it was all downhill from there, because no one really bought DDP as a threat, and the multiple times he got the shit kicked out of him by The Undertaker, and that really started on this show. So no real match came out of this. It was more of a brawl than anything else, and they just kind of, or I was going to say brawl all around the arena, but it was mostly Undertaker just kicking the ass of DDP all around the arena. So after that, we had our street fight between Kurt Angle and Shane McMahon. A great match. A lot of botches too. It's not a perfect match by any means, and I feel like people fantasize about the match. Not really fantasize, but kind of gloss over its flaws. But they're just mere botches. Everyone botches. In this match more prominently than in most matches. But it is Shane. He's not a trained wrestler. So you got to give him credit for what they were given to work with and the stipulation and whatever else. But Shane has always worked better, has always fared a lot has always fared a lot better in these type of matches, whether there are no disqualifications, and it's a street fight or last man standing or an ambulance match or no holds barred, what have you. This match was no exception. Angle just kicking the living ass, kicking the living shit out of Shane McMahon and kicking his ass. I guess doing both. All around ringside, in the ring, and obviously the famous moment of Angle suplexing Shane. I think it was 3, not 1, not 2, but 3 of those glass plates that had the King of the Ring logo on it at the top of the stage. That was really cool. He tried to do it a few times, and they did not break, so that had to have killed Shane McMahon before he even went through the glass or the panels or whatever. Great visual, really, really fun match. Again, not a near-perfect match by any means. There's a lot of botches. They don't have very fluent chemistry. The match didn't really have quite that flow to it, but you kind of forgive that stuff. I'm not glossing over it. I'm acknowledging it, but you kind of forgive that stuff because the rest of the match was so damn fun and really kind of made this a great show in terms of our 2 main events. So speaking of our second main event, a triple threat match between Stone Cold Steve Austin, the defending WWE champion, Chris Benoit, and Chris Jericho for the WWE title. Again, another match where there were a lot of flaws involved, and not the greatest of chemistry between Stone Cold, Benoit, and Jericho. But it was interesting how so much came out of this. Booker T came in. I'm pretty sure he was already on WWE TV before this. But he comes in, attacks Stone Cold Steve Austin, puts him through a commentating table, which I believe would injure Stone Cold for a few more months, I think. And not like he was in action at SummerSlam, so I think he was only hurt for a little while, or maybe it re-aggravated his neck injury. I forgot exactly what the extent of the injury was. But he comes in, attacks Stone Cold. Stone Cold wins anyway, with a kind of anticlimactic finish. So again, a really, really good match overall. Got a lot of great time, almost a half an hour. But there were the little things about the match that kind of prevented it from getting to the next level. That prevented it from being an amazing match as opposed to a great match. Like I said, I mean, obviously Jericho and Benoit had a really good chemistry, but they didn't really gel all that well with Stone Cold Steve Austin. I don't know if it was the lack of in-ring chemistry or whatever, but they didn't gel that well. Jericho and Benoit, however, was really a breath of fresh air in the main event scene. They had gone for the championship before. Benoit contended for the gold at last year's, the year prior's, fully loaded pay-per-view against The Rock in a great main event match. So they weren't really out of place in the main event scene. That wasn't really my issue. It was, like I said, just the real flaws about this match was the lack of real in-ring chemistry between Austin and then the other two. Benoit and Jericho obviously worked very well together, but it was Austin who didn't really gel well with the other two. Maybe it was just where he was, that stage of his career, I'm not exactly sure. Booker T's interference ultimately proving to be meaningless since Stone Cold won anyway, and the finish kind of came off as anticlimactic too. I think Benoit did a suplex or something to Jericho or vice versa. Something happened where Austin just kind of draped his arm over Benoit or Jericho or whoever he ended up pinning to retain his title, and just came off very flat. The crowd was like, that's it. So I kind of felt like there should have been more to it. That and the fact that whatever spot that was that closed out the match re-aggravated Benoit's injury, and he was out for almost a year. He was out for the rest of the Invasion storyline throughout the rest of 2001. And pretty much through King of the Ring 2002. He was at King of the Ring 2002. I don't think he was cleared to compete yet. But Benoit was out for a long time for an injury he sustained in this match. Austin, I think, got hurt on that Booker T spot. So, again, a good match, but historically speaking, not the greatest match, just in terms of the people that got hurt out of this. Booker T's attack on Stone Cold, which should have meant more than it did, really proving to be meaningless as well. So, again, just kind of small gripes, but still a very good main event match overall. So overall, King of the Ring 2001, a fun show. Not an amazing event by any means, but like I said earlier, though, significantly better than a lot of the previous shows from the late 90s and even the early 90s too. Like the 93, 94 shows were good and historically significant, but not great overall. The 96 show I loved. The 95 show sucked. 97, 98, 99, 2000 were mostly garbage for the most part, in my opinion. I thought 01 again had a lot of different flaws, especially long-term booking-wise, throughout the rest of the Invasion angle and whatever else happened in the remainder of 2001. But still, and compared to the other King of the Ring shows from the late 90s, and especially that awful 2000 show, and the Invasion pay-per-view from the month later, from the subsequent month, I thought this was a pretty good show. With a lot of good matches too. Like again, the undercard was pretty solid for the most part, and the two main event matches I thought were really good despite my flaws and my respective gripes with each match. So still, thumbs up. I would check it out on the WWE Network for its historical significance and the two back-to-back really good main event matches. So that is King of the Ring 2001. As always, thank you for listening and watching. Always appreciate your support. I'll be back in my next video, my final King of the Ring review of the pay-per-view itself, that is. I'm not reviewing the tournaments from like 06, 08, 2010, and 2015. I'm just talking about the pay-per-views, obviously. King of the Ring 2002, also obviously as seen on the WWE Network. But until then, be sure to check me out on Twitter at WrestleRant, on Facebook at facebook.com/Graham.Jason.Matthews, and right here on YouTube by liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing, and of course my website as well at nextEraWrestling.net. All the descriptions, are in the links down below. All the links are in the description box down below. Be sure to check it out. So until next time, guys, where my King of the Ring 2002 review will be uploaded and up in the next couple of days, I'm Graham Jason Matthews, and I'll catch you folks down the road.